Of all the teams that picked in the top five, I think the Dallas Mavs are the team that is most prepared to take that next step into really competing, even in the competitive Western Conference. And a lot of that hinges on them acquiring a big time center, but even if they don't, they are set up in a way that's really going to give them the type of future that they want to have. So right now, I think starting wise, just based on the way it looks today is I think Dennis Smith's probably going to be starting at point. Wesley Matthews at the two, even though I'll talk about later why I don't think that's actually going to end up happening. Harrison Barnes at the three, potentially at the four, depending on how they make their starting lineup. And then right away, we're just going to throw this out the window that Dirk Nowitzki might leave. He's obviously going to be back in some capacity next year for what could be his final season. He's going to be mentoring Luka Doncic, Dennis Smith for another year. And I can't see him not being in the starting lineup, though if there is any superstar who would accept the role coming off the bench, Dirk would probably be that guy. In terms of other pieces, they got a lot of guys with decisions to make in free agency. They've given offers to Farrell. They did give one to Doug McDermott, but they took it away. At this point, I would expect Salah and Farrell to come back. Though at the center spot, I'm going to leave that open because I do think they will acquire somebody this summer. In terms of the other players who I'm pretty sure are going to be playing for them, Jalen Brunson, I think they're going to make sure that he's on the team. He's a guy they really look forward to. I've kind of just been putting in similar values for other second-round picks. That's really going to be negotiated. But Jalen Brunson's a guy who's been winning for years at Villanova, really heady point guard. I think by the end of the year, we're going to see Brunson's going to overtake Farrell, and we'll see how that plays out, but I don't know how much longer Farrell will be on the Mavs if Brunson takes off like I expect him to. The other second-round picks we'll talk about later. I'm not sure what they're going to do with either one of them. I would very much expect that at least one of them, if not both of them, would be on two-way contracts, which is why I don't know what they're going to do with Jalen Jones and Jonathan Motley. I think of the two, Motley is the one with the most potential to be productive at the NBA level, but we will see with time. And then there's these other non-guaranteed deals to talk about. I think they generally like Dorian Finney-Smith in terms of depth at that position. I think they'll keep him. Collinsworth, I'm not really seeing the necessity to keep him on the team. So these are the free agents so far. Aaron Harrison, I'm not sure what they want to do with him. They could use another guard, but I do think they will look for some in free agency as well. I think they really liked Maxi Kleber, so he's likely to stay on the team. But like I said, with the two ways, that's something they'll have to figure out what they want to do with them. Aaron Harrison, not sure yet, and the second rounders are not sure yet. Now, to me, like I said, I don't really know if Wesley Matthews is going to be here when the year starts. But the one thing I do know, not just based on the press conference that Rick Carlisle had, but just based on the fact that I think Luka Doncic's talent is too much to not start. I expect him to be starting at the two. So let's just say for this situation, they started a small lineup, which is something they really went to a lot last year anyway, even if they didn't start with it. And I think as a Mavs fan, the one thing that Mavs fans should look forward to is this backcourt of Dennis Smith and Luka Doncic. They need to appreciate the fact that they're kind of contrasting, kind of got this fire and ice type of complementing styles. Dennis Smith is incredibly explosive, in the top % of athletes in the NBA. Doncic is one of the crappiest most creative playmakers that really the NBA has probably seen in a while. And coming into his rookie year, he already has a bunch of experience winning games, making big plays, making big shots, and is going to be ready to contribute from day one. Now, as much as you will probably hear people talk about kind of how Luka Doncic and Dennis Smith Jr. have contrasting styles, and one's more explosive, one's more finesse, they're going to work so well together because they can both make plays off the bounce, both like to push the ball in transition, can make plays for their teammates, and neither of them shot the ball particularly well. Doncic is a better shooter than Dennis Smith is, but that's the part of the game that Dennis Smith really kind of learned as the year went on. Wasn't afraid to take the threes. He didn't really make as much, and you'd like to see him get to the basket more, but playing with Luka Doncic is going to open so many things up for him as well. Now, when I talk about the Mavs acquiring a big center, the reason why that's going to put them over the edge of their rebuild is because they have these two guys as a playmakers. So here's an example right here. Luka Doncic coming off a screen, just throwing a simple lob pass. Now, this is not really anything overly special in terms of passing right there, but imagine if this roll man is a DeMarcus Cousins or a DeAndre Jordan, and think about the options that that's going to open up, because this is not the best defense, but if you have a DeAndre Jordan right here, every scouting report is going to have this man here helping before he gets all the way to the rim. And Luka Doncic and Dennis Smith both can make that whip pass to the corner if it's there. Both can turn the corner, and both can fake off with their eyes and then find the big man anyway, like Doncic does here. And we see Dennis Smith can do the same thing. Gets in the teeth of the defense, finds a big man, and just in case anyone needs any more reminders of how little Dirk Nowitzki likes to jump, here's one. Nice little dump-off pass, and he finishes that. That's going to be a dunk when you have an athletic big down there. Another area where we're really going to see Luka Doncic and Dennis Smith really change the whole culture of the Mavs is going to be as an up-tempo team that is pushing the break. You don't really think of a guy like Dirk Nowitzki as someone who likes to get up and down. Obviously, he's 40 now, so that's not really his style, but these guys are going to be changing that. You got Harrison Barnes, too, who can run the wings. Wesley Matthews is a good shooter. And then if you add an athletic big, an athletic center to this, the way Dennis Smith pushes the ball is ridiculous. He gets up the court quick and can finish. He's at his best when he's going at high speeds. Still needs to play a little bit more under control, but it's poetry in motion when he's on the break. Similarly with Luka Doncic, when he gets it, it's more strength and it's more power for Luka Doncic because he's 6'8", about 230. See, when he gets it, he pushes it and puts it into that extra gear. And at this point, he can finish over guys, he can finish through guys. I know there is a perception that he's not the quickest of guys, but he can get up and finish and is athletic enough to dunk that on somebody's head. So if we're looking at this backcourt, which is going to be one of the most exciting young backcourts in the NBA, it's going to be TV that everybody needs to tune into because the way these guys make plays, the way they push the ball, the shot-making ability is only going to get better. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. But with all these free agency options, the real goal here is you're trying to figure out a way to handle this 5 spot right here. And the way that I think that's going to happen and what's going to be, best financially for the Mavericks is going to be sign and trade. So if Doug McDermott is off the books, and we're saying they keep all these guys, but to really maximize the salary space, it would make sense to let Aaron Harrison go as well. And you're not sure what you're doing with either one of these guys. And that would put you at about $22 million in cap space. So at this point, the reason why I say a sign and trade is the best is because these are the targets that you can look at in free agency. Talking about DeAndre Jordan, you can either try to trade for him or in unrestricted free agency, he'll probably demand around $30 million, which would be over what the Mavs have. So they would need to make some other moves to make that available. Clint Capella is restricted, and I don't see the Rockets letting him go. He's really the perfect kind of rim-running big man to play with Chris Paul and James Harden. DeMarcus Cousins is unrestricted. I do think he really loves playing with Anthony Davis, and he saw how well that team did last year without him. And if there's a team that can really pose a threat, in, at least style-wise, with the Warriors, is a team with DeMarcus Cousins and Anthony Davis who can just brutalize you inside. Nurkic, Cantor, I think Julius Randle is a real option. I think he's a guy that they will look at hard as a guy who's from the area. And then Tolliver and Spates as kind of, backup plans if they don't get anyone else. Just need to, find some bodies to fill up the roster. But here's the deal that I think could go through to bring DeAndre Jordan to Dallas. Now, since it would be a sign and trade, it's really more the Clippers kind of helping DeAndre, but then DeAndre showing something back by allowing the Clippers to get something in return instead of just losing him for nothing. So the Clippers would be getting Dwight Powell, who has really shown to be a really strong, solid stretch four out of Stanford. He's really exceeded expectations for Dallas. The rights of Raymond Spalding, really long power forward out of Louisville, a second-round pick, and then a future second-round pick in 2023 that the Mavericks have from Miami. And with DeAndre Jordan on the roster, the Mavs lineup would be looking very impressive. So if it was a signing trade, obviously that would assume DeAndre Jordan opts into his deal worth about $24 million. You see, it would put the Mavs over the cap, so their mid-level exception would drop almost in half. And that would give them a lineup of Dennis Smith, Luka Doncic, Barnes, Dirk, and DeAndre. Now, this is a lineup that is scary for a number of reasons. Number one, you got guys that can get out and run and get out and finish in your backcourt, and Smith, Doncic, and Barnes. And Rick Carlisle has talked a lot about how he thinks those three are the core of the future. He really thinks they can all play well off of each other and really lead Dallas in the right direction. And being the type of coach that he is, he does bring the best out of his players, so I would expect that trio to really take a big step as the year goes on. But adding a guy like DeAndre, elite rebounder, great finisher on the basket, cleans up a bunch of misses, that's just going to make things that much easier for everybody else on the team. And now when you have Dirk in, you don't have to hassle him with big minutes at the 5. You can now play him at the 4. Obviously, you'd rather have him guarding 5s with his foot speed, but now he doesn't have to play big minutes in this year. You can have lineups where Barnes is playing the 4, and you have Wesley Matthews, who would be great off the bench as a guy who's an excellent defender, really good shooter. You could put him at the 3, play small lineups, and then kind of have 4 shooters around DeAndre Jordan. Obviously not Dennis Smith isn't a great shooter, but have 4 guys who can attack around him. So I would take Dwight Powell and Raymond Spalding off as they would be involved in the trade. Then at this point, there would be some more moves that need to be made. So again, with the mid-level exception of about $4 million, you're not getting a lot out of that. But that's why I had these wings on here to target. You look at a guy like Joe Johnson. I think Marco Bellinelli is still at the point in his career, especially after a really nice showing with the Sixers, that's worth, 10 to 15 million for short-term contracts. But if you can add a guy like Wayne Ellington who's willing to take less, or I don't think Rudy Gay is, based on the fact that he did opt out of a contract that was paying twice as much as the $4 million. But let's say you add a vet like Joe Johnson, and maybe you can go and get a guy like Joe Johnson and only be charged the minimum for him, and then go out and get a guy like Maurice Spates as well. For, I don't know, $2.5 million maybe. Though I do think Spates is worth more than that, but you never know what happens in terms of guys not getting offers, and then 1-year deals are kind of the way to springboard them into their next contract. So you never really know how that would work out. So that would give them some experience. Also, guys that can give some value. Spates would be a guy that could play either spot on the interior and be good backup, because in this whole situation you do have to consider that Dirk is 40, probably isn't going to be playing significant minutes, maybe, I don't know, 20 to 25 minutes a game. So you're going to need backups to do work for that. I think the Harrison Barnes at the 4 is definitely going to be an option that's going to be going to a lot. I think late in games, if Dirk is too tired or defensively there's a problem, you will see a lot of the Smith, Doncic, Wesley Matthews, Harrison Barnes, DeAndre Jordan, or insert whatever center they end up getting. It'd be very hard for me to see them not acquiring some high-level center this summer. I do think DeAndre would like to go to Dallas. I don't think Mark Cuban's going to have to chase him around, driving around Dallas to find him this time. And I think he'll enjoy being home and being in an environment where, you know, his job isn't really more difficult than it is with the Clippers. And then with the rest of the money that they have, try to get a guy like Jonathan Motley. I think Kostas Adetokounmpo is an interesting guy that will probably end up on a 2-way contract. Seth Curry is a really interesting story. Had his best season with the Mavs. I would not be shocked if they threw a lot of money his way to get him to come back, but the timing would have to align right. So when they do trade for a guy like DeAndre, they don't already have too much money put into Seth Curry. But if that's the case, that's just another guard to the lineup. He could go and really can play either guard spot and would add value there. But if not, this would be a solid team, a competitive team, and a team that's going to give you fits no matter who you're playing. You know, they might not be an elite team in the West, should compete for a playoff spot in that bottom part of the West, but it's definitely a team that is worth watching, even if they don't end up getting DeAndre Jordan for the next couple years. I look at a team, if you're looking into the 2019 draft, they go and get a guy like Cam Reddish, Zion Williamson, a Bol, just get somebody that can come in and add value at this 4 spot. I think that would be huge for them as well, because I don't know how much longer Dirk's going to be here. I think, say, max 2 more years. If they just add another young piece and have a centerpiece in the middle like DeAndre Jordan, this would be a really impressive team in a couple of years.